As we mentioned earlier in the show, President Biden heads to New Jersey today to promote his infrastructure and social spending plans, both of which are facing a critical week on Capitol Hill. Yesterday, Biden hosted Senators Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin at his Delaware home as Democrats look to broker an agreement on the president's agenda. Also on the line is the bipartisan infrastructure deal. Sources tell CBS News Speaker Nancy Pelosi is planning a vote for as soon as Wednesday after Democrats reach an agreement on the president's Build Back Better plan. Weijia Jiang is at the White House with more on all of this. Weijia, good morning. So how did President Biden's meeting with other great minds, if you will, yesterday with Democratic Senators Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin go? Did they come to any sort of understanding on President Biden's legislative agenda? Because I know that one of his challenges, I guess, is getting, Manchin to sort of specifically spell out what he wants.
Yes, I think Manchin has made more clear what he wants than his colleague, Arizona Kyrsten Sinema, who, if you talk to progressives, say they don't know what her red lines are. But this was a productive meeting with continued progress, according to the White House, that did not end in any big announcements with regard to reaching a deal, but certainly was a critical conversation because Manchin has been one of the holdups for the reconciliation package. And so we are closely watching every meeting, every conversation that the president is having, because he is more personally engaged than ever, just like our friends on the lawn care team at the White House. Sorry, just give me a second. I think it's always... So, yeah, I think that even though this was a really important meeting, it didn't end with any announcements. But we are expecting movement. It does feel different. I know we've been talking about progress, even if it's a little bit, for several weeks now. But certainly this feels like a turning point because that self-imposed Halloween deadline is approaching, and the president is leaving on Thursday for two big summits abroad. So I think the pressure is mounting.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that she plans to hold a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill as soon as Democrats can reach some sort of agreement on Biden's Build Back Better plan. When can we expect a vote like that vote to happen, do you think?
Well, sources are telling us it could happen as early as Wednesday or Thursday. But as you mentioned, the caveat is that they have to agree on the reconciliation package first, because progressives have made clear they are not going to vote for a bipartisan infrastructure package. That's the one that is smaller, with measures to fix roads, bridges, tunnels, what we consider traditional infrastructure that Republicans have signed to. They said they won't support that until there's an agreement on this reconciliation bill, which is the social spending, the social safety network that the president's trying to create, that we've been talking a lot about, with free universal pre-K, with expanded Medicare, paid family leave. So progressives want that done, and they haven't been able to get to an agreement, again, because they're deciding how to pay for it, for one, as well as how to write the language for the climate pieces to satisfy West Virginia's Joe Manchin. And so as soon as that's done, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she will hold a vote, because she has said many times before she's not going to do that unless she has the numbers, because she's not going to take it to the floor and then have it fail.
I'm wondering, which component of this, you sort of outlined two issues, but I know there's more than two issues. Which component is kind of the bigger lift? What's going to be in it, or how it's going to be paid for?
I think it's split down the middle, Anne-Marie, when you look at the two senators who are holding out. Both Manchin and Sinema have long said that it needs to be a smaller package, so it's already down from the original proposal of $3.5 trillion to around $2 trillion. But then comes the conversation about how to pay for it. Kyrsten Sinema has said she does not want to raise taxes on corporations or wealthy Americans making more than $400,000 a year, which is exactly how Democrats had hoped to raise the money to pay for this. And so the White House is floating a couple ideas, like a tax on billionaires and making the corporate tax on companies at least 15%. to close any loopholes that allow companies to pay less than that. But you're right, it's also about the substance, because, West Virginia is a coal state, and Joe Manchin wants to make sure that his constituents have protections moving forward whenever we're talking about climate change policies. And so they've already removed the most significant, the most powerful program that was going to cut pollution in this package. So they have to look for different policies that will somehow still get to the president's goals to cut pollution by 2030 and 2050. So it's a heavy lift on both counts.
Yeah. And, we've been talking about kind of its impact domestically, but I wonder if there's a little bit of an impact, even if it is just in reputation globally. How crucial is it for President Biden that Congress reaches a deal on this spending package before he attends the Global Climate Summit in Glasgow? That begins this weekend. We know, part of his campaign pledge was to put the U.S. back in the Paris Accord, which he did. If the U.S. wants to sort of emerge as a global leader when it comes to climate change, I imagine getting this legislation done would be important.
Absolutely, because you don't want it to be a case of do as I say and not as I do, right? And you're right, the president has made clear he wants the U.S. to be a global leader to fight climate change. Well, if you can't even get your ducks in a row in the U.S. and have, the government agree on how to hit those goals, then why should countries like China, who have been really resistant to participate in reducing emissions, participate when they could just say, well, you're not even doing it. You haven't even figured out how to do it in America. And so it gives them more incentive to stay idle. And so I think we heard from various lawmakers in his own party over the weekend saying that this lowers the president's hand as he heads into Glasgow, if there's not some sort of, policy agreement on climate change, on how he plans to move forward, because then it's a case of him asking and pressuring other countries to do something that his own is not yet.
Yeah, totally. Weijia Jiang, thank you so much.
Thanks.